Shalom, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a live episode of Faith Walk, the intersection of life and faith. It is Wednesday, July 24th. 2024, and it is a great day to be alive and well. Tonight, we are talking with experts in the mental health field, and I am one as well. And tonight's topic, it's in our the Black Woman series. And tonight, we're talking about Black women and their mental health. What a topic to talk about today, tomorrow, and every single day that we are blessed to live, because our mental health is so important and we have not given it the value that it deserves. Everything we do in life, our mental health goes into it. The decisions that we make, the people who we have in our inner and outer circles, everything we do, we can tell how well or unwell a person's mental health is just by the words they choose to use. Again, the company they keep, the facial expressions that they use. We can tell that there's something going on when, say, it doesn't fall within the normal range, right? And so we can gather what the normal range is. If a person is simply frowning all the time, or maybe angry all the time, then that means that there's an issue there that's probably gone unaddressed, may have been there a long time, because within the normal range, yes, sometimes we may be angry, sometimes we may be upset, sometimes we may be frowning. But when you see the person who's frowning and angry all the time, that's an issue that needs to be addressed. So we're talking about Black women and their mental health, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we have experts on this evening. We're going to talk about that, different topics under in mental health, and specific things that Black women deal with as it relates to their mental health. So I'm going to bring my co-host on first, Sandra Lee. How are you, Sandra Lee?
Hello, Sharon. I am doing well. I am very excited. We have a power-packed team of women here that I cannot wait to hear. So I'm just going to let it start. Just bring them on. Bring them on. I'm super excited.
All right, so I'm going to go to the chat first. And of
Okay.
course, Honey Bunches is the first one
Always,
to join.
always.
Honey Bunches, thank you. We love you.
She's on it.
And yes, and Aisha is second. You know, Aisha and Honey Bunches, they have a race going. So
Yes.
the Honey Bunches is still in the lead, but Aisha's with that little horse is running neck and neck. Aisha says, "Good evening, everyone. Looking forward to a great show." Danielle says, "Shalom, shalom, Danielle. I miss you. We still have to get together and go out to lunch. I haven't forgot. Get some of those good old crabs." And Netta says, "Good evening, everyone." And of course, Honey Bunches says, "Hey, you guys who are watching via Facebook, please like the Full Life Communications page, the page that you're watching on. You're watching via YouTube. Subscribe to the channel." Like the video on both platforms and share the video. Don't keep all this wonderful, great information to yourself. Share it so everyone can be informed about their mental health and know some things that they can do to start improving their mental health with what we're going to talk about this evening. Doreen just logged in. She says, "Good evening, ladies." Hi, Doreen. Good evening. Good evening.
Hey, Doreen.
Watching. So yes, please subscribe to the channel, follow the page. It helps the algorithm and helps us to create more great, wonderful shows, because it gets in front of more people. And the more people our shows get in front of, then we can begin to make money. When we begin to make money, we can have more guests on the show, have more shows, have more people on, and all things like that. So help us out here as we help you out. We're all in this together. So what I'm going to do now is going to bring up all of our guests. And our
Okay.
guests, they're going to introduce themselves,
All
what they
right.
do in the mental health field, their specialties, and a little bit about themselves. Then we're going to get into the heart of the matter. If you see me looking down, it's not because I'm not interested, it's because I am working the board. I do all of this myself until one day I have someone who's assisting me. So I'm putting, when you see the questions highlighted on the lower third, that's me putting them up there from the chat. And then I'm talking in the chat. So please don't think I'm disinterested. I'm just trying to speak to you as well as run the board as well. All right, here we go. I'm going to bring up Dr. Lassiter first. How are you, Dr. Lassiter?
Hey, Dr.
Hello,
Lassiter.
hello, Sharon.
So
Hello,
Hi.
glad to see
Sister
you.
Lee.
Oh, good to see you.
And
Hi.
here is Dr. Robin Wiley. Hi, Dr. Robin. How are
Hi, Dr.
you?
Robin.
Hello, good evening,
Yes.
everybody. Good evening.
And we have Dr. Tina Bedell. How are you, Dr. Bedell? Can you hear me?
Michelle.
Yes, I
Hey,
can.
Dr. Liddell, good to see you.
Hi, good to see everyone.
Awesome.
Yes.
And last but certainly not least, she was just last in the queue. We have Bernice. Uh-oh. All right, let's see what happens with Bernice. Because you know the devil is so busy, but he is not going to
Always.
succeed. He's been trying to get us not to be hooked up with sound tonight and everything else, but he's not going to succeed. So, Bernice, I'm just going to lower you, and maybe if you can hear me, um, log off and log back in, and we can see if we can get you back. So, Dr. Lassiter, why don't you start? Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, specialties, and things of that nature.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I'm really excited to be here. It's an honor to be invited, Sharon. Thank you to your co-host Sandra Lee, and to my sisters who's sharing the platform. Hello, Dr. Bedell, Dr.
Hi.
Robin, and Bernice Lee, who will be joining us shortly. Um, this is this is my niche. This is my field. I love it. And honestly, my misery became my ministry.
All
Um,
right.
but by profession, I am a special ed teacher. I hold a doctorate degree in education, but also by ministry, transformative trauma relief is really the focal point of the work that I'm doing right now. I am the author of Secret Jewels Hidden for Discovery. And these jewels tell you all about the nuggets and the wonderful investment and treasure that you have in yourself. But after I wrote the book and after I had my own life experiences, I was able to be able to say, okay, if I recognize these things in me, but I'm dealing with some type of a trauma, I may not be able to maximize them at the fullest capacity. And it really motivated me and ignited me to really prepare a curriculum that I have gone out to different churches and different organizations to be able to present that to help in the area. Well, as you're recognizing, you also need to deal with what it is that you have been holding on to for 1 year, 2 year, 1 decade, 2 decades. And so that's the work that I've really been doing. I'm excited to hear more from everyone and to share some more information. Thank you.
That's
So
beautiful.
awesome. Wonderful. Thank you for that. Dr. Bedell, how about you? Give us some information about you and your background.
Okay, hello, everyone. Glad to be invited to this platform with amazing women. I have a bachelor's in psychology, a master's in mental health counseling with an emphasis on marriage and family. And then I have a doctorate in marriage and family therapy. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, board certified life coach. I see both couples and adults. People think a lot of times when you're licensed as a marriage and family therapist that you only see couples and families. The only clientele I do not see are children, unless it's in the context of the family. I don't see children by themselves. My specialty is depression, anxiety, infidelity, anything having to do with family issues, spirituality, helping people to find their purpose, and trauma. I authored my first book in 2020. It was a bestseller within 24 hours of its release. Here's the book right
Woohoo!
here. Talk a little bit more about that later, possibly. I'm currently working on the workbook to the book. And so I plan to have that out by the end of the year. I am in ministry. I'm a prophet in terms of that. And so just happy to be on this platform with you ladies. And I'm excited about the
All
discussion
right.
that we'll have tonight.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Dr.
That
Bedell.
is
Thank you, thank you,
beautiful.
thank you. And yes, if any of you are authors, please
Yes.
share the title of your books, where the audience can purchase those books, and you can even put it in the chat if you are so inclined to do double duty. But definitely at the end, make sure you let people know where they can purchase your books and where they can contact you for your services. All right, Dr. Robin Wiley, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Forgive my voice. I'm a little under the weather, but I'm here and happy to be here. Sharon, thank you so much for inviting me. So, I am a licensed clinical social worker. I've been in the field of social work for 30 years. And the majority of that time, excuse me, I've worked as a therapist. throughout the state of New Jersey. I am the owner of Infinity Empowerment Services, which is a group practice. We provide outpatient and in-home services. Our outpatient department has all women of color, and we've been able to maintain that for several years. And as we, it's just so great to be talking about this today because in terms of mental health specific for Black women, because it is still very difficult to find Black female therapists or Black therapists, period. That's still like finding a unicorn. So in terms of specialty areas, we certainly, for myself, primarily working with individuals dealing with anxiety, ADHD, stress, that type of thing, depression, of course, and trauma. But I also have a specialty area. My doctoral work, my doctorate is in social work also. All of my research is in the area of working with older adults and their lived experience. And so part of the trainings that I do and workshops and things like that have to do with the aging population, which is kind of like a passion area of mine.
Okay.
Awesome, Dr. Robin. Thank you so much for that. I had put a few people who came into the chat. I put their information up. Sugar Hill says, blessings, beautiful family. Keisha Symes says, good evening, everyone. Kathleen Jones says, hello, everyone. Gwendolyn, good evening, family. Good evening, Gwen. And someone's young person said, hi, hello, Mama Nicole Noble.
That's my spiritual daughter.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to bring Bernice to the stage now. Let's see. Yes, we got her. Hey, Bernice, how are you?
Hi, hello, I'm back.
Yes, you are. Thank you for joining us. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. So I'm Bernice Lee. First of all, Sharon, thank you so much for this opportunity to be a part of this panel with these highly qualified, intelligent, powerful, amazing women of God. I just am so happy and gracious to be here with you guys. I'm a licensed associate marriage and family therapist. I have an undergraduate degree in sociology with a minor in women's studies. So the two mental health and the issues that deal with women are important to me, have been for a very long time. I'm an ordained minister where I serve under the illustrious Dr. Wynell Freeman. I am a part of Fresh Word Kingdom Assemblies. Currently, I'm employed at a private agency where I'm working with adults, couples, and families. I also do part-time work as a licensed in-home therapist, where I'm working with children with behavioral, mental health, and emotional challenges. So that's pretty much.
All right, thank you for that, Bernice.
Absolutely.
I'm going to share a little bit about myself, and after I'm done, Sandra Lee is going to share about herself, because we're all in the mental health field. So I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's degree in counseling and human relations, and I'm currently writing my dissertation for my PhD in marriage and family therapy. I am an LPC already, a licensed professional counselor. And I'm in private practice. Actually, Robin and I share an office, and we've shared an office for many years. We go way back. And I see couples, individuals, adults, young people. I also do the in-home therapy, but I do it virtually now ever since COVID, but I still do it virtually. So I see a lot of young people and families. And in my practice, I see mostly couples and individuals. And specializing in depression, anxiety, assertiveness training, trauma, and self-esteem building, confidence, assertiveness, as I said before, with a lot of that goes into that, and unraveling one's history that helps them understand who they are and why they do what they do and make the decisions that they make and who they have in their lives and why they're repeating cycles. And all of us are doing that really, but just kind of breaking it down a little bit, because sometimes I don't believe that you have to have a diagnosis to go to therapy. Yes, that's what insurance companies want, because that's the only way they pay for it. But life is stressful, right? Life is challenging. Sometimes we just need someone to talk to who can be objective, who and it's confidential, and it's a safe place where you can share anything without judgment. You don't need to have a diagnosis for that. And so I would encourage everyone living and breathing to have a therapist, whether you have a diagnosis or not, because it's just good to have someone who knows nothing about you that you can say anything to without being judged, and it's confidential, and you'll feel better, and you'll probably get some help as well along the way with whatever it is that you're dealing with. So I encourage everyone, again, living and breathing, to do that. So Sandra Lee, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can share about your mental health background.
All right. Well, my degree is in broadcast communications, speech, and theater. Totally different from what you ladies have. Graduated from North Carolina A&T State University. I am an Aggie and proud to be. And I was hired by Sharon Thomas 21 years ago. And that's the job that I'm at right now. So I work with mental health and addiction. So though I may not have the other credentials as far as behind my name, trust and believe with the stuff that we deal with every day, man, I'm in my office like I'm Dr. Lee, okay? Because they be not 7, okay? But
and
that
Sandra deals with the seriously mental ill and partial care.
Yes.
So
yes.
yeah, it's very challenging.
It is. We see all schizophrenics, bipolar, depression, OCD, ABC, EF, G, H, I, J, K, L. But so that's my background with the mental health field. Like I said, Sharon hired me 21 years ago, and I'm still holding on.
Yes. All right, ladies. So, and audience, again, if you're watching, please subscribe to the YouTube channel if that's how you're watching, or like the Facebook page, like the video, and share it, because we want this information to get out to everyone. And we want to grow the channel by you subscribing to the channel and liking the Facebook page. So let's get started with the conversation regarding the Black professionals, such as ourselves, in mental health. Have you all seen any challenges in the mental health field that are, say, specific to Black women who are therapists, maybe not afforded some of the same opportunities as our other cohorts, or just some things that seem off sometimes, or what are maybe some things are beneficial as being a Black woman in the mental health field? Dr. Robin, why don't you go first?
So I thought about this, and I reflected on a past experience I actually had in the past in my career, where being kind of assigned certain clients that were deemed as, difficult, or and then kind of being told, well, I know you can handle those clients. And I was certainly, I was a lot younger in my career, but I started noticing that pattern, whether they were other Black clients, other Black female clients, or just clients of different ethnicities that were deemed a certain way, like we're determined to be like, the louder client, the more tougher client. And so I think it's kind of like being pegged as being able to handle those clients based on stereotypes of whoever my supervisor was at that time.
Yes.
So yeah, or the idea that everyone that was Black that came into the practice, that I would automatically have a connection with them, as if, being Black
Right.
was a big experience.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. All right, Dr. Lassiter, would you like to take that?
I would love to hear more from my other guests here, that's on the platform, to hear how they're handling that.
How they're handling the question of what Dr. Robin said.
No, yes, the question in terms of, are they seeing any type of disparities between, as Black women?
Well, I would say, for me, I would say there's a lack of representation of us in the field. And I can definitely agree with what Robin said. When you're working among others who do not look like we do, we're getting the clients coming in who are Black, who may be loud or who may be more problematic. And so for me, I feel like sometimes it can lead to feelings of isolation, in certain agency where you're the only Black person, or maybe one of two, and lack of support.
I think for me, I want to take this from an administrative standpoint. This particular place I used to work at, we would have what is called case consultation. So the therapist would go, and it was a person heading that. Well, let me use another example, because I can probably use this example that I was going to use probably later on, but it's still from a kind of an administrative standpoint. So I was working as a therapist in this particular place, had a great reputation as a therapist. At the time, don't know if it's the case today, but at the time I was the only licensed marriage and family therapist in the city that I live in with a doctorate. And so the position that I was wanting to get was at the job I was working at that time. And it was being a director of the marriage and family therapy program there. And so I applied for the position, interviewed very well, to the point that someone told my boss at the time that I did an excellent interview, and they ended up giving it to a white woman who was much younger than me, who did not have a degree in marriage and family therapy, did not have a doctorate, and she ended up getting the position. Later on, it worked itself out, because what I didn't realize is that you had to earn your own salary, because you had to go out and try to get funds from people to donate to the actual nonprofit organization. But there was no reason why I shouldn't have got that job. I was the one with the degree. I'm the one with the experience. At that time, I probably had 20 years of experience. I had the degree, like I said. I had a great reputation. I was already working there, and this particular person wasn't even working there. And so, needless to say, that particular position went down within a year, and it was no longer even part of the program, but I was still there. So God worked it out, and it was wonderful. But I really felt like it was a racial disparity.
That seems blatant.
Yeah.
Wow.
Seems quite obvious.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not that I'm speaking for anyone else, but I'm sure many of us here on this panel, people in the audience, and Black people everywhere, in their fields of expertise as well as everywhere, we, experience some level of what Dr. Bedell was just talking about. I'm going to share something in answering this question regarding racial trauma. That's what my dissertation is about, racial trauma. And Black people live racial trauma every day. But unfortunately, and I'm going to say it like this, we wear it like our skin because we don't even realize it.
Yes.
Because we cannot live in America, the United States of America, without racial trauma being a part of our lives. Because a lot of it's emotional, and things that we see even secondarily, vicariously, right, affects us with depression and anxiety, like watching these videos of Black people being murdered by white police officers or other people. That affects us, especially watching it over and over and over again. Not even the same one, but just different. And so that's something that's, to now answer the question, that is not addressed in the mental health field. And it's shameful that racial trauma is not even in the DSM-5, which is the book we get all of the diagnoses from for mental health addictions. I mean, that's ludicrous. So that's what my dissertation is about, Holy Spirit. Right? And so whatever Holy Spirit gives you, it's going to be potent. All right? Absolutely. So that's just the one thing that I wanted to share, because it's such an issue, and we don't talk about it enough in therapy, because it affects every aspect of our lives, Black people come to therapy, Black couples come to therapy, Black families come to therapy, and it's not a part of the conversation. Yet it's affecting everything that they do, whether they know it or not. So it needs to be brought up as a part of the conversation, because as therapists, we bring the subconscious to the conscious awareness of the person, because we can't change what we don't know. The subconscious is what we don't know. And in therapy, we bring that forward. Now that we are aware, now I know that I can do something different now that I know what it is. So I just wanted to share that little bit about
Sharon. The conversation seems to be is springboarding in my mind my students.
Okay.
So my students, Black and Brown, and when I hear them talk about premature death, when I hear them talk about gun violence, it's a natural conversation, like, pass me that book.
Yes.
And I understand what you mean by the trauma is worn like it's just normal skin. And it's not normal to experience shooting and killing on a regular basis in your home, coming through your door, walking to the the side store. That is not normal.
Not normal.
It's not normal
at all.
At all.
I had an experience when George Floyd was murdered, and I had many experiences. I started practicing self-care more so than ever been after that, because I experienced vicarious racial trauma. I didn't know him, right? But I was going to the drugstore to get my mom's prescription, and I heard, and this is probably a couple of weeks after he was murdered, and people are still protesting. And I heard sirens. I was sitting in the parking lot. I heard sirens, and I had an anxiety attack right there. Now, I'm not doing anything wrong, but it's the trauma from what's going on with Black folks being murdered by white police officers. I am a Black woman and have lived many years as a Black woman. I'm not young, right? And so there's a history here. And so what I know, what I've experienced, and then again, the recent death of George Floyd, and having watched that sick video many times, because I was doing the news then, so I had to on social media, so I had to follow the news closely. But anyway, and so I had 2 panic attacks, 2 anxiety attacks sitting there, because I got ready to go in the store after I got myself together. And then another police siren came on, the same thing happened. I found out there was a protest not too far away, peaceful protest, and the police were just going just to make their presence known so nothing jumped off. But this is real. Racial trauma is real, and what Black people suffer from it is real. And I am a living witness. So, and of course we all are. I'm just sharing one of my experiences. I have several that I can share, but great example, Dr. Lasker, great example. Young people is just like, oh, this is just who we are. This is how it's supposed to be. No, it's not. It's that way because of our society and what has happened to us in our lived experience. I don't know, has everyone answered that question? I'm not sure. Or everyone who wants to, let me say that.
Sharon, I have a question I want to ask. So when a Black woman is coming to see you in therapy, are they coming because it's a situation where they have to go to therapy because it's court ordered or mandated, or they're just coming because they realize that they need help? The thing of it is, ladies, everybody needs help in one form or another, right? And so one thing I will say that I'm noticing is that the commercials and they have a lot of books out and stuff about, self-care, take care of yourself, take care of your mental health. I mean, you're seeing that over and over again. So the women that you're seeing in your practices, are they aware of that? Or are they going because they feel like they have to go because of court order or something like that? Anybody can answer that.
Good question.
I can speak to that. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Dr. Robin, you go first, then Dr. Bedell.
I was going to say, I think it can be both. I think, I mean, not so much maybe court ordered or something like that, but maybe somebody has encouraged them or because people will, ask the question, like, you think I should go to therapy? And I've had people to ask me that, and I'm like, yes, because everybody should. So, but I think going to therapy is trendy. It is. It's a trend. It's been a trend, I think, since the pandemic. I think a lot of people that time at home, that time, out of society where we didn't have all those other distractions, made people sort of like have some maybe self-awareness. It created some self-awareness, and folks were probably thinking, hey, I need to talk to somebody. Now, I think that brings people into therapy. And I think, those of you who've been doing this for a while can tell you what happens is when therapy is trendy, then a lot of times people want to come in to be able to say they have a therapist, but not necessarily realize therapy is work.
Yes.
Journey, therapy is hard. When you start peeling back those layers and start working on stuff, it gets hard, and then it lightens up a little bit and make it hard again. So it is a commitment. I feel like there are people that may come into therapy because they're in a crisis situation, or things have gotten to the point where they're like, everything they've tried is not working, everything else. And so now they've come to terms with, I may need to talk to somebody that's a neutral person, an objective person. But I mean, I think it's all reasons. I think people come in for a variety of reasons.
Dr. Bedell, you had
I think for me, yes. So I've had some people in the past who have come because they've been court ordered. And sometimes that's women and then sometimes that's men. But for the most part, people were seeking out therapy. And that's the majority of my clients, people who willingly are seeking out therapy because they know and understand that they need help. And some of these people are people who have been in therapy before, so they have an idea, they have a frame of reference of what it's about, and then other people for the first time. And so most of my clients are those who are actually seeking out therapy.
Okay. And
Dr.
Dr.
Bedell,
Bedell,
a question.
while you were speaking, I put a question up for you. It said, what did you do during Dr. Bedell while God was working it out in your favor? There's something you were saying earlier when the person put that up there, so I'm not sure.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So person, Sugar Hill, if you want to clarify that question, then Dr. Bedell can answer it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's when you were talking about going through the situation with the job where you didn't get that position, and then someone else got the position, but you still worked at the same place. I think it's like, how did you deal with that while that was going on? Because that's kind of like right in your face that you didn't.
Yep.
Well, I wasn't sure. Well, I kind of prayed about it, and I felt like, for whatever reason, that God has something bigger and better for me. I was somewhat disappointed, but not really. And I think I would have been more disappointed if I felt like I wasn't qualified, or I felt like I didn't do well in the interview. I knew I did well in the interview. I know I have the favor of God, and I felt like there's something better for me at that particular job. And at the time, they wanted me to go to the ministry side of it. I wasn't it was faith-based institution, and so they wanted me to go on the ministry side. I didn't end up going on the ministry side, but shortly after that I went into private practice, and I don't know if I would have went that quickly had I got that position. And I believe if I would have had that position, it'd probably still be open right now, but it went under within a year of her holding that position at that particular place.
Wow. Yeah. What God has for you is for you.
Amen. Sandra, I wanted to answer your question, and I was thinking about myself personally. I never ever thought about going into therapy because no one in my family ever talked about family. People around me in my circle never talked about going to therapy. But when life started lifing and it got really, really intense, it was the first time I thought about it, considered it. I did it. And now I am like a poster child. What in the world was I waiting on? And I think that therapy should be like when you have an annual checkup.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
you have the 6-month dentist checkup. It needs to be something that is there, whether there's a big emergency or not. Because when I started therapy, I thought I was going in for the emergent situation that was happening at the time, but really, no. I needed to do what I think I heard Sharon say: peel that onion. We had to take it off layer by layer, and it went deeper. It went deeper, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for my therapist, who I stopped because I started having my own personal thoughts about things. But I decided, no, I'm not jumping off the bandwagon. Let me keep going. And I'm really, really glad that I did, because she was able to help me see a perspective that I just could not see myself. So
Yeah,
it's good stuff.
that's awesome. And I want to stay right here. I'm going to read this. One of our people in the audience has a comment, but after I read that, let's stay right here and talk about what we all do as clinicians for our own mental health. So a lot of times people think that therapists don't have therapists. I mean, we don't go to therapy because why should we? But we're human. We should. Everybody should, right? And so, and then some of the things that we do, and the audience, put some of the things that you do for your mental wellness. And so we can all put it together, because what might help you might help me, and what might help me might help you. So I would like all of us to answer this question, those of us who are on the panel and those who are in the audience. So let me read Super Lady Fee's comment. She says, on my job, I match therapists and children based on the therapist's specialty, and ensuring Black and Brown children see therapists who look like them. All right,
wow.
Super Lady Fee, and I can vouch for her that she does that, because I know her. And she was to me. All right. So, okay. So
I can go first, Sharon.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. What is it that you do?
So I wanted to also, if it's okay, piggyback off of something that Robin said. I wrote it down because I didn't want to forget it. She talked about the hard work when people come into therapy and challenging them. And I've seen that a lot of times when you challenge people to see what it is that they don't really want to deal with, they start to run away. And also, she talked about the pandemic, when a lot of people that I know who were very against therapy started therapy during the pandemic. And most people did share that the reason why was because it was virtual. They didn't have to go into an office where people would see them and they feel like I'm being judged for going into therapy, because people see it as you're weak, you're not strong. And it's such a stigma in the Black community. So for me, we all have this saying, we've all heard it: every therapist needs a therapist. So I go to therapy. I talk to a therapist. I don't have a therapist currently. I'm looking for a new therapist. I think at some point in time, I don't know, to me it seems like you can kind of outgrow a therapist. And so I'm needing something different. Or maybe during that time, there was something that I needed that I did get at that time. So I'm at a different place in life where I feel like I need more. And also, for me as a Christian, I lean on faith. I pray. That's another thing that I do. That's how I deal with my issues, my things that I need to process, pray. And I exercise daily. So therapy, praying, and exercise, those are the things that I gravitate to for comfort.
Awesome. And before the next person goes, let me read this comment here. Honey Bunches says, for self-care, I like to bake, color, and paint, visit my niece and nephews, and listen to music. Music is definitely a form of therapy for me, along with my actual therapist that I see. Thank you for that, Honey Bunches. Kevin says, every therapist needs a therapist. I totally agree, Kevin. And
Yeah.
Dr. Robin, Kevin says hello.
Hey, Kevin.
Sandra knows Kevin too, Dr. Robin.
Yes, we used to work together.
So what else? So who else would like to answer the self-care wellness question? What do you do to keep yourself well mentally and emotionally?
I would like to say something about what the gentleman said about all therapists need a therapist. I remember I was working for an agency one time, and I was just coming into this particular place, and I was doing the orientation, and they were explaining to me about the job and all the different things. And so she was like, and this is the therapist, and I was like, the therapist for what? And she said, oh, this is a therapist that we all go see here. And I was like, oh, like all the therapists? She said, all the therapists here have a therapist. And I'm like, really? Now, I was a little ignorant. I was like, really? Now, this was back in 2010. And I was like, really? So all y'all go to the same therapist? She said, yeah. I was like, oh, that's okay. That's different. But to answer your question, I think one of the things, just as therapists as general, we have to know our limits. We have to know our threshold for and our bandwidth to be able to deal, one, with some of the things that we hear in terms of those individuals that come into our office, particularly if you're dealing with things like trauma, or you're dealing with things that are very sensitive, that have to do with children. But I'm big on setting boundaries. That's one of the ways that I do it. I get my massages. I hang out with the people that I love. I make time for my husband throughout the day, and just having those random lunches together and spending that quality time with him. Of course, prayer. I remember there was a time when a few years ago, my mom passed away, and I just really didn't care to do therapy. I felt like I was actually grieving properly, and I felt like I was handling it well, but I was like, I don't really want to do therapy. And I felt like I needed to go on a sabbatical, but I didn't allow myself to. But so I was just kind of going through the motions when I was seeing clients. They had no idea, but I knew that I wasn't necessarily myself. And then a year later, I went on a 6-week sabbatical, and it was kind of like the best thing that I could have done for myself at the time. And so when I came back doing therapy, I felt rejuvenated. I pretty much shut down. I wasn't talking to anybody. I just spent time with God. I spent time in prayer and in His Word, and it just really helped me personally. So I know my limits. I know when I need to just shut down, and not really talk and not do a lot, because I pour out a lot, not just to my clients, but to my spiritual daughters, to my family. So it's just not the pulling that the clients do. It's also all those around, and it's not. I don't have a complaint about it. It's just more so you got to know your limits, and you got to know when you need to pull back.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's good.
Anyone else?
I know that women, Black women, we are major nurturers, and we take care a lot. And many times our strength can be taken advantage of because we are multitaskers, and it looks like it's so easy that we got octopus arms and we're handling this, that, and that. And sometimes strong people get overlooked and ignored. But I do take on the practices that the stewardess says in the plane. If you're traveling with seniors or with children, if anything happens in the cockpit, inside of the cabin, put the mask on yourself first before you attend to everyone else. And so I realized the importance that my life matters. My life matters. And I immediately put a plan and a strategy in place. I stole the T-Mobile line, have yourself a Fave 5. Yeah. I think everybody needs a Fave 5. That means that you're trying 5 people that you know that you could call when I am not having a good day. Listen, I need to talk to you about this. And they call, they know what to do. and maybe out of the 5, you might have at least one that you could really, really, really bare your soul and just tell them all the dirty stuff, maybe, but I believe in that. And so the exercise, managing my money so that when something comes, I could do it and I could be free and happy about it. That self-care, doing a facial, doing a massage, hey, buying myself something, which is something that I didn't do because all I thought about was caring for other people and other things. I never thought that I could buy what I want when I want as an adult who is working. But I don't follow that anymore. Also, when I have days off on my job, I used to just stock them all up as if I was going to get some great prize. And I just never used them. Now I use them. You give me a mental health day, yes, I want it. You give me a family support day, I want it. I got a sick day, a personal day, I want it. I use it because my life is important. My life is important.
Well, and let me just say that because I work in mental health, well, let me just go back further. I am normally always what you see right now. I'm always bubbling, I'm laughing, I'm a comedian, I'm always just that person that you want to run into. If you're having a bad day, come on here, let me give you a hug, and you're going to feel so much better. So people that know me, they know this is who they are. This is who I am for real. This is not made up. It's funny because when I moved here, I'm a Southerner. So Southerners are naturally friendly. So when I got here, and as friendly as I am, y'all Northerners was looking at me like, what is wrong with her? And I was like, why are they not friendly? But nonetheless, so I am who you see, right? However, I think you said something about this, Dr. Lassiter, how, the ones that are outgoing or seem to be happy or whatever, they get overlooked, right? And so with me, people never think that I am sad. Now, because I work with mental health, when I come in, I am a ball of energy all the time. And so, but when I have my own situations, at one point I had some major stuff happening, and I was trying, because I knew I couldn't go into work and have that, because if I'm always up, I can't walk around and be down, because I'm dealing with people who are looking for the energy for when I come in, right? And so I had to say, how am I going to do, those masks that we wear, right? And so I had to pull it out, even though it resembled me, right? But on the inside, I was feeling some way. Now, I have to be honest, I don't have a therapist as far as someone that I go see. Now, Sharon and I have been friends for 20 years. She was my boss initially, and she's really kind of still my boss now because I take care of her mother, but that's another story. And so, but I talk to her all the time. So I know that we're friends. So you really can't have your friend as your therapist, because I know that is, not really what you're supposed to do. But that is how I've been able to, flow and go when I need something. Oh, I need to talk. We talk all the time. And you talk about the 5 phase that you have. Our friend Felicia, I had never heard it before, but she has like 5 friends, and me and Sharon are part of the friendship group, right? And the other people are friends of hers, but they're not a part of the 5 phase. And so I have folks that I can call. I'm big on family. I love my family. It's 9 of us, and when we get together, it's like, yes. But I'm friendly all the way around with not only just my family. So what do I find that helps me when I'm going through? Laughing. Let me tell you what, I'm a stand-up comedian. I'm trying to be, but it's just natural, right? And so I laugh, and I just laugh. I like to go out and eat. I like to just look at television. So I find ways. Of course, you're gonna pray. That's the number one thing. That's automatic. But it is those people that's like me, that's always that burst of energy. You do want to keep an eye on us, because people always think that we don't ever have a bad day. If we do have a bad day, you just don't see it. So I got to be real on that, because my daughter, she has said to me, Mama, you get on this show every week and talking about therapy. You don't even have a therapist. So I'm coming clean today and saying I don't have an actual therapist. I know Sharon's not technically my therapist, but I'm still working on getting an actual therapist. That's what I wanted to share. Because as soon as Sharon said, tell your story, I'm like, ooh. Got to tell them I don't have a therapist. So I'm just being real. This is what I do. This is what I do.
Oh, Super Lady Fee, I put up her comment a couple of times. This is who Sandra was talking about, that we are in Super Lady Fee's Fave 5. I never heard of it until Super Lady Fee said it, because it's something in the phone, because I'm not really tech savvy. And you can put your favorite fives and whatever. So that's how I found out about it as well. So we are all a part of her Fave 5. I think I have a Fave 4 up to 5.
Okay.
Still talking about knowing your limits. I think it was Dr. Bill. That's my limit. 4.
I got my 10, 20. They say I
Dr. Robin, what about you? What do you do for self-care and wellness?
So yes, I'd like to have a plan. I actually have it on my phone, like just as a reminder to myself of things that I need to remember to do for self-care. Certainly, I think one is definitely setting boundaries. So I concur with everybody else. And, I think we all struggle with this, but it's so important. I think we talk to our clients about this all the time, setting boundaries. So whether that means, not overbooking, saying no, or just saying maybe later, or I can't do that, whatever the case may be. I like to get rest. I like to rest. I like to take a nap here and there.
I love a good nap.
Doing a nap, I know, and it's so funny.
I can't live without naps.
I was horrible at napping. I don't do that. Now I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever, taking a nap.
Yes.
I like to do things that I enjoy. So, and that, I think that just changes as we get, as we change in age and maturity and that type of thing. I do want to say I do have a therapist. I do. I think, for me, that's a part of my self-care, because I spend the majority of my day listening to other people, and that is, that's our life's work, right? And we enjoy doing that. So I need somebody to just listen to me. I need somebody to listen to me, and it's not necessarily. I mean, I have friends. I have a really strong friend and family group that are very supportive, and so I'm very thankful for that. But sometimes you need somebody you can just tell anything to, and they're gonna listen and feedback and that type of thing. So I also, one of the things that I started doing, I want to say since the pandemic, is really, I've always liked to read, but I really like to try to read things. I try to be mindful of what I am reading, what I'm consuming, like in my mental. So the books that I read, the articles that I read, any information, I try to read things or listen to, like podcasts, that type of thing. I try to listen to and read things that pour into me. So it usually is something that's inspirational, something that's uplifting. And I really try to make a conscious effort to do that, because I feel like, and I try to do it in the morning. I try to do it in the morning so that helps me to kind of start out my day. And that's kind of a practice that I started during the pandemic, because, we're just, I know those of us that were doing therapy virtually, I know at one point I was seeing like 40 people a week. We were, you get up, you got clients all day, and then you go into bed, and because we were just in the house. So, so those are the things I do. And of course, music is another part of that too. I love music also.
Okay, awesome. Bernice, did you go yet?
I sure did.
Okay, so everyone has shared about their wellness, self-care routines, except for me. All right.
Yeah.
Well, boundaries is huge for me, like Dr. Robin said, and I think Dr. Bedell said. Boundaries are huge, huge, huge. People don't realize how boundaries are self-care. When you set boundaries and stick to them, a boundary is only as good as you stick to it. If you don't stick to it, then it's just talk. Because people will cross your boundaries even once you set them. But if you don't enforce it, then it's on you. But anyway, so boundaries are huge for me. It frees me up. It allows me to have less stress in my life. And when you have less stress, then you feel better, right? I like to take naps. One of my number one things to do. I don't think I ever stopped that since, how you're in kindergarten and you I don't think I ever stopped. You know what the best nap is? That after church nap.
That's delicious.
Yes, yes. Better than eating, right? So yeah, and I like to go out to eat. I love massages, facials, manicures, pedicures, things like that. Love doing stuff like that. I do deep breathing all throughout the day. Deep breathing is so good for our internal organs. It's good for regulate our heart rate. It's good for help to calm us down, to reoxygenate the brain. Deep breathing does many things that you can't see because we're typically shallow breathing, and it does a lot of stuff for us internally that we can't see. But in the moment of, say, feeling anxiety, stress, anger, whatever it is, it can help to calm us. Not say totally, but it can help bring us to a better place. And when we're transitioning from work to home, home to school, this to that, doing some deep breathing can help in transition times. I know when I want to transition from whatever I'm doing to prayer, I'll do some deep breathing first to help, settle myself so I can get in the mind frame and the body mode to pray. I keep a to-do list, can't function without it. I set alarms plus my to-do list because if I didn't have an alarm set for this show tonight, I would have forgotten about it, right? So I have alarms that go off every so many minutes to remind me, you got a show tonight, you got a show tonight. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but the alarms on my phone constantly going off to remind me about sessions, to-do lists, pay a bill. That's self-care for me because it keeps me organized. It keeps me on track, which makes me feel good. So those are some of the main things. I do some other things as well, but those are some of the main things that I do.
Sharon, I wasn't.
Hey, Sharon, I want
to. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Dr. Lassiter.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, Sharon, I wasn't convinced about deep breathing until I actually needed it.
Oh, really? What happened? How did it work?
I mean, I felt like I was losing composure. I felt like my cool, calm, and collective way that I used to be for so long, it got nudged out with the situation that I was dealing with. Mm-hmm. And then I felt like I just remembered it one day, and I put my 2 feet down flat. I sat up and I breathed in my nose and out my nose, in my nose, and I was like, "Oh, sweat, that works." and now it's a part of my practice. It's a part of my practice. And I don't even have to sit still, though. I don't have to sit still anymore because I practiced it so much, along with meditating, like this, just shutting up and listening and being quiet and tapping into imagination. Oh my God, that is a powerful gift that is given. And so often it's been introduced to us negatively that we think having an imagination is wrong. No, that's a jewel. That's a treasure. That's a jewel in here. Imagination. It is an awesome practice if you can set yourself to do it. Awesome.
Yeah, and that meditating on the word, on scripture. You know what I mean? That's one of the things I do. I forgot to mention prayer being one, and spending time in the Lord's presence is one of the main things that I do for self-care. And that takes practice to not allow your thoughts to, consume you when you're trying to sit.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? Because I know for me, like, it only has a few minutes, and I'm still a work in progress. I'll be off to my to-do list, off to that, and then I'll be like, oh my God, I was praying. It's 30 minutes later. I drifted off to something else. Like, Sharon, bring your mind in. So then I'll do some deep breathing, all that kind of stuff, speaking my heavenly language, to get me back on track. But Dr. Lassiter, I want to make a suggestion to you for this question. For the statement you made. You said you have a hard time napping in daylight.
I do.
If it's just a daylight issue, maybe try one of those masks that block out the light. Maybe. And then if it's just a light issue, and then maybe, it might work.
I know my body, it seems to be designed to go down with the sun.
Okay.
And it rises with the sun. I'm a early, the things that I could get done in the morning while everybody's sleeping is amazing. But as the sun go down,
let me jump ahead because it's already 9:02, and I want to make sure. And Sandra Lee, I know if you have to go, you could just remove yourself. That's fine. What are some of the things that we're seeing specifically as it relates to Black women who are going to therapy.
Well,
And then,
Sharon, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I know Dr. Robin had her hand up when you were
oh,
saying.
did she? I'm sorry, I didn't
saw
see.
her.
I'm
I know you
sorry.
didn't see her, but I was wanted her to say what she was gonna say first
And,
before you go to
I
the
was
next
just going to
question.
say two things. I was going to say one was about the deep breathing. Like, keep in mind that our deep breathing, or our breath, our control of our breath, is a natural regulator. It is.
Yeah.
It's a built-in regulator for our body. So that's one thing. The other thing is, the other things you guys were talking about in terms of the sitting still and that type of thing, is really about mindfulness, a mindfulness practice, which can be applied to various areas of our life. And it's not that idea of it's the absence of thought or there's no sound. It creates awareness. It helps you to create an awareness, so that, because most of the time we are somewhere else. You know what I mean? Even right now, we're here participating in this panel, but we're thinking about what we got to do afterwards. We're thinking about a conversation we had earlier today. You know, we think about what we got to do tomorrow, what time we go to bed, what we're going to eat after this is over, all those types of things. So we're often not in the moment.
Right.
So that's what I was going to say.
Very true.
Okay.
Very true. All right, ladies. So what are we seeing in therapy that Black women are coming to therapy for, and for the most part? And what are some of the things that you can share with the audience that will give them some wisdom nuggets, some tips, if they, see some of the things that you might say that other Black women are coming to therapy for, and maybe they're experiencing it. Are there any tips that you want to give out, any wisdom nuggets, things of that nature? And before you answer, ladies and gentlemen, we are therapists, but we are not your therapist. So we are not prescribing or saying that you should do, and this is for you, or anything like that. We're just giving information. You should seek out your own therapy so you can have individualized treatment. This is not therapy. Just want to make that disclaimer. So, Dr. Robin, do you have anything to share with the audience regarding that?
So I think some of the things that certainly Black women are coming in for is definitely, childhood traumatic things that have happened. And remember, trauma, what we traditionally think of as trauma, is not the total definition of trauma. Trauma can be anything, because it's really about how something is experienced. It's not necessarily about the event itself. So certainly, whether it's abuse, neglect, those types of things, growing up with emotionally unavailable parents, and that is not that's not a dig at parents. It's just that individuals that grew up in a certain generation, oftentimes parents were working, parents were trying to provide for the family. So what happens is, there was maybe the emotional piece was not necessarily there within the home. Certainly dealing with more stress, anxiety, depression, a lot of undiagnosed stuff that someone may have been dealing with for the majority of their life, that they've just been dealing with it. Because one of the things we need to recognize with Black folks in general, but particularly women, is that we sort of have this mentality of, something happens, we just need to push through because we need to be strong, and we're actually held in high regard for that. And that's unfortunate, because that also sends a message that, well, if you experience something, then you just have to act like it didn't happen.
Right.
But what we know about trauma is it lives in our body. So regardless of whether it happened 20, 30 years ago, it could still be manifesting itself today in how you deal with your relationships, how you interact with others, how you treat yourself, how you talk to people, how you respond to situations, all of that. So it still has an impact. So I think those are the things that I see, just, a lot of typical things coming in, talk about relationships. I think most of us would probably agree that no matter what somebody comes into therapy for, at some point, we're going to be going back to family of origin stuff.
Absolutely. 100%.
Can you say that again? I didn't hear that last part. Some point.
I said, regardless of what someone comes in initially to therapy for, I think we as therapists would agree that eventually there's going to be some discussion of family of origin issues.
Oh,
True indeed.
100%.
Whoever you grew up with, whoever raised you, whatever those experiences were, a lot of times those are some of the issues that we carry with us. So yes, so That's the part. Do you want me to answer the second part in terms of the tips?
Well, let's answer the question first, because we want to make sure we get to the audience. So this young lady says, Nicole Noble says, how can you encourage someone who is stuck in their ways that the only way to move forward is to be honest with themselves? Who would like to take that question? I laugh because this is so true for so many people.
I'll take a stab at it just because I'm reading it and I'm thinking what I was thinking about, because acknowledgement is a big part of insight. You know what I mean?
Change what you deny.
Right. So if you don't acknowledge it, but a lot of times it also, that insight comes from understanding that whatever it is that you're doing, whatever behavior it is or whatever, is it working for you? If it's not working and you're not getting the outcomes you desire, then that's probably an indicator that you might need to do something different. Now, change is hard. And I think what we have to recognize is that I can't make somebody change. Even as a therapist, I can't make you change what you're not ready to change, what you don't acknowledge that needs to be changed. Now, can you present me with situations and we kind of unpack them, and then hopefully you can gain some insight from that? Maybe. But so even as a layman, if you're not a therapist, if this is your spouse, your whoever it is, your significant other, your friend, your sister, whatever, you can't make somebody change if they're not ready to change.
Right.
That's right.
Powerful.
And what therapy helps with, because typically, just say if you're a friend, family member, somebody that they know, then people feel judged, because oftentimes we are judging them, whether we say it or not. Right. And we don't know if it's going to be confidential, what we say. So, we're stuck in our defensive posture. Right. And with whatever, like Sandra Lee talked about, that mask, whatever mask we want to put on, because you know what? The bottom line is we're afraid to be vulnerable. And when this person becomes honest, that means they're putting themselves in a vulnerable position, vulnerable to themselves, to acknowledge maybe something that they've done or what's been done to them. And then I'm vulnerable to you, because how are you going to use this information against me? Now, you might not even do that, but this is part of the mindset. How are you going to use this information? Right. And so when someone comes to therapy, we go to that vulnerable place, but a level of trust is being built, and it's confidential, and I'm not judging. So the environment is set. It's right for someone to let down their guard, to then be vulnerable, to then be honest. That's a process, right? And it takes a setting, a safe setting, and a safe person or people in that environment to make that happen. So Nicole, your question is great, but that's a huge ask. So that's why people don't do it so readily. It sounds easy. Why don't you just be honest? But with all the baggage that I carry that you don't even know about, and you want me to be honest about something that you might think is small, but that's too much. And if I reveal that, what might happen? Right. And so that fear is, there's the fear of the vulnerability. And so what I don't go there. We don't go there. Yes, Robin.
Also, too, and just kind of going also with that is the idea that a lot of times some of the behaviors that we possess are coping strategies. They might be maladaptive, but a lot of times strategies that someone has created for themselves to be able to survive one situation in their life, they now apply to every situation. So those are trauma responses, but they're also ways that sometimes if you say to somebody, well, you really should probably do something different or whatever, that can be too difficult because they don't necessarily know how to do something different.
Right.
So a lot of times, so I think what you were saying too is like, let's not judge that person, because oftentimes, there are coping strategies that this person has. I always like to say they're protective factors. I know we use protective factors in a different way, but people are trying to protect themselves. They're trying to keep themselves safe. And oftentimes those childhood wounds, those situations that they've experienced early on in life have now set a template for them that they continue to take with them. So they feel like whoever they're encountering, they still have to protect themselves.
Yeah.
Even though that may not be the case. So
and
just
I'll add one more thing. Oh, sorry, Robin.
Now I was just going to say, so I think the idea is to create a safe space for that person.
That's absolutely.
You have to accept people for who they are, and maybe when they're ready to change, they will change.
And it's how you say a thing. It's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Right.
So how is this person being approached with being honest? So remember, our nonverbal communication is more than 90% of communication is what our face and our body is saying. Right. And what our verbals are saying, not the words, but the tone, pitch, volume, right? And our tone carries so much weight. Yes. How are we saying to this person that they need to be honest? They're reading you first. Right. And if your nonverbals don't match up with your verbals, I'm not going there, because your nonverbals are the truth. Right. What you say out of your mouth is what you want me to hear.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So I think one of the things that I wanted to point out, Dr. Robin talked about how, as therapists, we cannot make anybody do anything, right? And a lot of times people are not self-aware, and so they don't see the things that other people see. And so their perspective about themselves is distorted because they don't have the self-awareness that they need to have. But I think one of the answers to the question can be, you have to have strategy, right? And I think this is what distinguishes somebody who's a therapist versus a layman, right? So, one strategy could be, let's keep bringing that person back to that thing without saying that thing. So if they're stuck in a place and in this particular thing and they don't see it, you structure therapy, you structure questions, you make comments that keep bringing them back to that same space. And then it creates an environment where you can say, okay, do you notice we keep coming back here? That sort of thing. And then one of the things, when I find my clients stuck that way or in denial, one of the things that I say is, I want you to pick 5 people that you trust and go ask them, is this true about you? Not somebody you have a problem with, somebody you trust, somebody who is not your amen corner, but somebody who does genuinely love you, cares about you. Find and somebody who's going to be honest with you, and see what they say about this particular question. And typically what happens is they'll come back and they say, they all said this. And then it gives them a different perspective because they chose the people that they wanted to ask, not me. Right. I just gave the criteria, and the criteria was somebody that genuinely loves you, somebody that you trust. Ask them this particular question about yourself. Do I have a problem with this? And typically what happens is they come back and they recognize, like, everybody said that I had a problem about this. And I said, pick somebody that is going to be honest with you. And so it usually turns out pretty good. But I think, like I said, it goes back to having the right strategy for them to see come up with making up their mind that this is an issue for them without saying, you're stuck in this place, you keep coming back. You strategize in a way that keeps bringing them back there so they can see it themselves. And sometimes people just need to be able to acknowledge it themselves versus feeling attacked or feeling offended by something that you're saying about them.
All right.
We have a comment from Honey Bunches. She says, I read somewhere that only 10 to 15% of the population is self-aware. How do you navigate the relationships knowing and experiencing this? Right, why the divorce rate is so high, why relationships don't work oftentimes, and why people who are in relationships oftentimes aren't happy. Because people don't know themselves, right? And when I don't know myself, I don't know what's triggering me when you're triggering me, and the person doesn't even know that they're triggering me because I don't even know myself to say that that's a trigger. So I often tell people, it's like in couples counseling, it's not that your mate is doing this to make you mad or doing this, whatever. Your issues are clashing and you just don't know what your issues are. right? So you learn yourself and what your issues are now, and then you're sharing that. It's like, oh, okay, now that I understand you, I know what to do and what not to do. And then we can move together, forward together, helping one another. And also, too, changing attachment styles. Not going to get into attachments, it's a whole other lesson, but
Yes.
we have attachment styles and they can be changed, become secure once we understand who we are, our issues, and how they're affecting this coupling relationship.
I think one of the things that you can do is give them homework assignments that force them to make themselves aware of certain things. Then also you can point out different things that you see in that person. I noticed that when you said this, you responded this way, but I also noticed last week when we talked about this other thing, you also responded in the same way. So then basically it gives credence to what you're saying about them, and once again they come to the conclusion that this thing is an issue. But I think given homework assignments that are geared towards allowing them to see things about themselves that they didn't see before, and that's not always the bad things about them, because people come in with low self-esteem. You could also give them a assignment that, you know, make them think about what's good about them, not just the negative things, but also the positive things.
That's right. The strengths are important.
I was just going to say, I think with Honey Bunch's question too about how to navigate relationships with that, knowing and experiencing that, like that people are not even.
Robin, speak up louder.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me? I said, going back to what Honey Bunches was asking, you know, like the idea, or basically stating that with having that knowledge, that basically only a small part of the population, and it might be smaller than that, is self-aware. You know, how do you navigate relationships? You know, I think that people can help each other to become self-aware. You know, oftentimes that happens when you're with a partner. You know, I always say that's like a mirror. It's like looking in the mirror, because you have somebody that will reflect back on you and will let you know this is what you do, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the issue is about, and I think it comes into communication. You know, are you able to communicate with that person what you're seeing, whether it's, because we all have patterns of behavior. So whether it's the patterns or whatever, and is that person able to receive it? So, you know, communication is two ways. It's, you know, our intent can be one thing, but the impact we also have to be aware of. And sometimes we want to be very direct, you know, and almost like harsh with someone, because this is the person, they know I love them, they know I care about them. But where we would be more careful with somebody that we don't know. And it should be the opposite. We should actually be more caring and considerate of, as Sharon was saying earlier, the tone of voice, you know, all of those things, because that impact, we just don't know. And we also, when you're involved with somebody, whether it's friendship, whatever the relationship is, family, familial relationships, whatever, oftentimes we don't know those people's experiences. So I think it's having that understanding that oftentimes people are responding not based on what's happening now, but what has happened to them in their past.
Right.
And so oftentimes there's a lot to unpack there.
So the defenses are already up, and now you're trying to give me feedback about me that say on the negative side. Then, and again, how you say it, you start to things off with you that makes people feel blamed and attacked. When you say you did this, you did that, automatically I'm on the defense, right? So should use I statements. I think, I feel, right? And that comes off better. And now the person is more inclined to hearing you. Now they still can be defensive, but if you want to try and get a better result, you know, we should use I statements rather than you statements. But also, too, a person has to be in the place that they are ready to receive feedback.
Yes.
And so sometimes when a person you're in a relationship with is not ready to receive feedback, preface what you're about to say. So, you know, I want to talk to you a little about something, and it might be a little bit like awkward or difficult conversation, but because I cherish this relationship, I think that, you know, is something that needs to be said, and then get the buy-in. Is it okay if we have that type of conversation? Now, more than likely, the person's not going to say no, because that's what you have to say. So now they've said yes, and then you've gotten a buy-in. And then what you have to say, remember the nonverbals, right? Because they're speaking louder than the words that you're saying. also too ask for feedback for yourself. We need feedback too. It's never one-sided. So, you say you flush that out and say, I'm open to feedback too. Is there something that you can share with me that maybe it's something that I'm doing that I don't like, or you want me to stop doing, or that I can do better? I want you to give me feedback too. So it's not just me giving you feedback. Make it a two-way street so the person doesn't think like they're the problem all the time.
Right. Right. But Sharon, can I say this? Honey Bunches, that's my daughter, and she's big on self-awareness. And so I can say she is always telling me about being self-aware. So you know how you say open to I want some feedback. Yeah, give me the feedback. You better be ready to get it and receive it when they tell you. So, the first thing you be like, I know you lying. That ain't me. You make stuff about me. But then, so you have to be, if you want feedback, you really, really, really gotta, because I'm telling you, it gets rough when people who know you and they're telling you. I'm going to share this quick, and I know the people in the prayer group is going, where is she at? But anyway, I want to say this. 20 years ago, or probably maybe 19, we were doing the process group with Sharon. We did it for 8 years, and Lord Jesus, it was so difficult. So you would get in a circle and you're processing the feelings that you're having with your coworkers, right? So you got to tell face to face if they've offended you or whatever the case may be. So Sharon would have us do this once
Sharon me.
Sharon, and it was grueling, and I'm a talker. So I could not hardly ever sit still in the silence. And so Sharon said one time to me, she said, well, she wrote it down. I actually still had this, and it's probably 18 or 19 years. I've had this little yellow piece of paper. And Sharon had said in one of the sessions, write down something about someone in the room that you don't think that they're aware of, or something to that effect, right? So she picked me. And when I opened up the piece of paper, she said, listen more and talk less. What? First of all, I listen. She said on paper that you don't listen, and I'm the best listener ever. Are you kidding? She said, Sandra, you don't. So we had this conversation. I was like, man, I dare her. I am the best listener in the world. But what I found out, what I do is if you start a story and you start talking, I immediately jump in and I'm talking, right? Because I found myself, like, even in that same week, probably that same day, when one of my clients came in to talk about whatever they were talking about, they started talking. I said, yeah, I know what you're talking about, because so and so. And then all of a sudden it was like, smack me upside of the head. And she just said, I don't listen. That was a perfect case in point. I don't. So it's one of those situations, when you get feedback, be ready, because it is a life changer sometime for you, because you don't really, a lot of time, you're not aware of yourself. So it was funny when I saw that question come up about being self-aware. That is something that we are working on, because like I said before earlier, she has a therapist, and trust me, she uses her therapist a lot of times to make sure she's getting me straight. So so I just wanted to share
She's
that.
talking about Honey Bunches, not me.
Honey Bunches right just there. It says, wow, thank you so much. She's probably saying, thank you so much, Mama, for telling the truth about that. But so you just have to be ready. If you want some feedback, and I heard somebody say it earlier when we first started, it is work. Learning how to be a better you is work. Peeling back the onions of layers of your own self is work, and it doesn't happen overnight. And so to be self-aware, it's a daily thing that you have to be mindful of some of these things that you have that you think are great and wonderful, when in actuality it may not be.
And we all have blind spots. That's a normal thing to have blind spots, but it takes the person to tell us what those blind spots are, so we have to open in order to receive it. To then
she told me about blind spots about me, Sharon, as well. Yes.
Did someone else start to say something while I was talking?
Yeah, I like, Sharon, when you were talking about how, going to them kind of, you didn't use these words, but kind of like with a disclaimer of,
yes.
you're not going straight into you, this, that, and the third, you're going in. I would like to talk to you about something. And I like that. And I do this with my clients. present that to a person, it's kind of like you disarm them from the jump.
Yes, yes.
So even allowing yourself to be vulnerable and saying something like, you know, I've been wanting to talk to you for the past 2 weeks about this a particular thing, but if I'm honest, I'm just being transparent right now. I'm just being vulnerable right now. I was concerned that it would be taken the wrong way and you wouldn't hear my heart when I shared that particular thing with you. So it already disarms them from being defensive. Because, I mean, they're not going to say, yeah, I'm going to be mad. They're going to be like, oh, no. At that point,
Exactly.
no. So they're like, no. And so you go into it and you put it the best way you can. And sometimes there are situations where you can't really put a bow on it because they need to hear it a certain type of way. Right. And that goes back to knowing who you're talking to and knowing how they receive information, going back to tone and that sort of thing. I have some clients that it's kind of like your children. If anybody has children, you know, that one child you can just look at and they're going to straighten up. And then the other one, you got to hem them up. You know, and then you have the other, all you have to do is yell. And so it's the same thing with your clients too, understanding like, okay, this person may be sensitive, but it seems like the only way they straighten up is if I come hard. And so I have to come hard and then love on them hard afterwards. And so it goes back to having that strategy. But I like what you said in the beginning about talking to them up front about that particular thing, because I think it disarms them.
Absolutely, Dr. Bedell. Nicole says, what I'm learning is that it's so easy for many to give advice, but it's hard for those same individuals to be receptive to advice from others.
That's true.
Yeah. And so taking, you know, as Dr. Bedell just said so eloquently, taking that vulnerable position yourself. This is awkward for me too. That's saying I'm being vulnerable right now because this is awkward for me to have this conversation. But you know what? I value you and our relationship so much. I'm willing to be vulnerable with you. So I'm taking the initiative first to be vulnerable by saying it that way. Now that lays the groundwork for the other person to let down their defenses and to be receptive and maybe to be even a little vulnerable as well. So we have a part as the deliverer, and I'm not just talking about therapists, I'm talking about the person who wants to say, tell the other person that they should be more honest, right? Or they're working on the relationship, you know, a person can be aware. All the things that we've asked in the chat. Show it yourself first, and then share it with the other person in that vulnerable way and see the result that you get rather than going in with bulldozers or just saying it matter-of-factly or whatever. It will go a long way. That's what therapists do.
Right. Ooh, this is so good, Sharon. We're like 9:30 now, girl. We are hot on the trot right here.
I know.
We got to get a part 2 on this because
we definitely have to get a part 2 as long as the ladies are willing.
Yes.
And that hour and a half went by so fast, but it was just like there's so much information, you know, and obviously the audience, they have so many questions and you know, they're taking it all in. So we appreciate you guys listening and being patient with us going overtime, and thank you for all your questions. But before we wrap up, expert panel, any wisdom nuggets you want to leave the audience with tonight? Even though you've already done that, any parting words that you would like to share? Well, Bernice, how about you go first, since we haven't heard a lot from you tonight because we've just kind of jumped in and taken over.
I'm a woman of few words. But if I could share it,
powerful.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Sharon.
I said, but the words you share are powerful.
I received that. Thank you. So if I could share anything, I would say to people who are listening, if you're not in therapy, seek out a therapist. As I said, I am very big on therapy. Right now, I don't have a specific therapist for myself. I do have a clinical supervisor who I use as my therapist right now. But I would say seek out therapy. And sometimes you may not get the right therapist right away. Sometimes you may have to go through one or two before you get to that person that you have a connection with. Make sure that it's someone who is culturally competent to be able to deal with our specific issues as Black women. If I can leave anything else, I would just say that therapy is definitely a tool, a good tool for self-care. It's very important.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Bernice. Dr. Bedell, would you like to share something?
Just to piggyback off of what Bernice said, that you try a therapist. If it doesn't work, continue to try. You got to think you're dealing with people who are you're going into a situation where you're about to tell somebody your business, and just like any other relationships, it's like somebody might not be your friend, not that they're not a good person, you just don't mesh. Or you may be dating somebody and realize that they're not the one. They're a nice guy, but they're not the one. And I think it's really important that people, if they have a therapist and they do a few sets, first of all, give it a chance. Don't go to one session that doesn't work unless you see something blatant that it's like, oh no, that's not going to work for me. But also sit down and think about what it is that you want in a therapist. And you can go to like Psychology Today and break it down by gender, by ethnicity, by specialty, by location. And then, really do some research, look at the reviews and see what people are saying about that particular therapist. You go to that therapist. If that therapist doesn't work, then you go to the next one until you find the one that fits you at the time. I had a situation where I had a lady was seeking me for therapy, and I said, "Had you ever been here before?" And she said, "Yes, this is when I was working for an agency." And I said, "Well, who did you see?" And she told me who she saw. And I said, and I knew this person to be a great therapist. And I said, "Well, why don't you go back to her? You can go back to her." And she said, "No, because I need what's in you this time." What she said was, this particular, her husband had died, and she said, that therapist really helped me through that. And I will always be grateful for her. But what I'm going through now, I need you. And I'm like, well, she don't even know me. And then she said, what I heard about you in this instance, I need you. And so just understanding where you are and looking at people's specialty and making sure that there is a good fit.
Oh, that's good.
Awesome. Dr. Robin?
I was just to piggyback off what everybody's saying too, is the idea that therapy is not just about you're in a crisis. Certainly that could motivate you to go into therapy, but it can be about maintenance. It could just be about wanting somebody to just talk to, just a impartial person, somebody that's objective, a neutral person, just to learn some strategies to cope in everyday life. So I just want to make sure that we keep that in mind. And also too, I would say, because I know there's a lot of women, Black women in our audience, that that concept of being the strong Black woman is a badge of armor that we tend to wear, and that oftentimes keeps us from seeking help, and that is also slowly killing us. Okay, whether it's killing us through physical ailments, through emotional ailments, because we're trying to handle everything on our own, and we need to stop doing that. We need to break that cycle. That generational cycle, and we know that comes from our history, our past, which is grounded in traumatic experiences. So that's just my tidbit: is don't be afraid to ask for help, to seek that, and to seek that from a professional.
Great, Dr. Robin. Dr. Lassiter, what about you?
I would say to our audience that you don't have to stay in the shape that you're in. You don't have to stay behind closed doors and isolation. You don't have to stay in shame. There is help out here. And if you cross over that threshold, you will be the better for it. I remember the day when I woke up at 5 a.m. and I screamed out, I will never be a trauma patient another day in my life, because I did not like the experiences that I was having. I didn't like how it felt. I didn't like what I was thinking, and I didn't like it. And that screaming out was my initial shifting of the gears to begin to do the work so that I can unfire and unwire, refire and rewire new thought patterns for myself. And your feet will never take you where your thoughts have not taken you already. And you have to work on it. You have to do the work. If you change and transformation, it is possible. And we are here as a family in the community to be a great resource to be able to help you with that.
That's beautiful.
Absolutely. Sandra Lee?
Man, this was so good. All I can say is, man, we need a part to you ladies have imparted so much knowledge. Man, do I have a therapist? Yes, I do. All of y'all. Hey, but it was such a great show. I tell you right now, I just want to say that I really enjoyed hearing all of the wisdom that you ladies imparted to myself as well as the audience. And it was just a great show tonight.
All right. And before we go, ladies, you forgot to share your contact information. So let's just go, or your book. So let's just go one by one. Dr. Lassiter, share your book, your contact information if you choose to.
So here is Secret Jewels Hidden for Discovery. You can find this on Amazon. I just finished, Dr. DeBell, I just finished my workbook, if you will, to this. And it's now in the hands of my editor. And you can find this on Amazon. You can find it on Barnes and Nobles. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Dr. Crystal Faye Lassiter. You'll find me there.
Awesome. Dr. Robin, your information?
So yes, so the website is drrobinwiley.com. All the social media, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube is Let's Talk with Dr. Robin.
All
right. Thank you, Dr. Bedell.
My website is BedellCCCServices.com. I am on Facebook as Tina Brown Bedell. I am on TikTok and Instagram as Dr. Tina Bedell. Once again, this is my book, Naked and Unashamed. It was published in 2020. Currently, I am working on the workbook to this. And like I said, I want to have it published by the end of the year. And it can be found on Amazon.
All right.
Awesome. Bernice, would you like to share any contact information or anything?
Email address, bernicelamft@gmail.com. Thank you so much, Sharon.
Awesome. And I'll speak for Sandra Lee and myself. You can find us here every Wednesday at 8 p.m. live. If you want to be a guest on the show, Full Life Communications, that's where we broadcast from, fulllifecommunications@gmail.com. fulllifecommunications@gmail.com if you want to be a guest, or if you have a business that you want us to highlight for you, send us an email and you can reach us here via email, or when you watch the show, something in the chat. My website is my name, Sharon, with a hyphen in the middle, Sharon-Thomas.com. All right, ladies, thank you guys so much. Ladies, we have to do a part 2, even though this was more than an hour and a half. We've got to do a part 2 at some point. So let's talk about that behind the scenes. I thank you, ladies, so much for your time here tonight. Audience, we thank you for engaging with us tonight. We love you. We thank you for supporting us every week on this show. And join us next week for another live episode of Faith Walk, the intersection of life and faith. Now, we're going to start the Black Man series. I'm not sure if it's going to start next week or the week after, but it's coming up, The Black Man, because this is ending our The Black Woman series. So still stay tuned. We got a lot of stuff coming in store for you. Dr. Randolph Walters will be back on August the 7th talking about Black men and their mental health. So we got a lot of good things in store. So please join us every Wednesday night. And ladies who are on the panel, don't hang up. When I end the live stream, it'll end, but just stay right there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. God bless you. Have a good evening. Have a God week. Shalom.